1974, NFL introduced sudden death overtime. That meant a field goal wins the game. So if you win the coin toss, you take the ball, you get into range, you kick a field goal, the game's over, which is just insane, right? Insane. It took them till 2010 to adjust that rule.
I was just going to say that rule lived forever.
Yeah.
It was there for so long.
You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by In Play Live and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/InPlayLive to sign up and get in the game.
Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle, purifying the sports betting industry. I'm Shane. He's Pace. We've got a lot on today's show. March Madness is over. The Masters is here, which means playoffs in the NBA and the NHL. Some warm weather around the corner, and maybe it's not too early to talk about football. So we got a lot on the go, Pace. But first things first, Pace, I need to grab a glug. Okay? I made an error on last week's episode, and I've heard about it.
Oh no! Did I not catch it?
So we were talking about regulated markets. We were talking about Alberta in particular, moving forward with its legislation, and I mistakenly referred to Quebec as a regulated market in Canada, which it absolutely isn't. Mistake made by me. I think I was thinking about Kanawake, which is a First Nation reserve in Quebec that does regulate sports books. And so that's kind of where I think my head was at. But Quebec is certainly not a regulated market. So a glug for me.
All
right.
I didn't catch that. Had I have, I would have said something. But I mean, how often do I say the wrong thing when your brain's thinking one thing, your mouth says another? It happens all the time.
It happens all the time, and I'm thinking about one too. When I said a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about March Madness heading into the tournament, and I was referring to Alabama, and I think I said Auburn had played Alabama State, but they had played Alabama. So there was one there too, just recently that I didn't fess up to, perhaps in the moment.
Sounds like you're human.
Yeah, we all make a mistake or two here and there, but this one in particular I heard about from our friends in Quebec and our listeners in Quebec, and so wanted to put that out there for everybody. But March Madness is over. Congratulations to the Florida Gators, and thank you to the Florida Gators for often falling behind and storming back to win. They did it over and over again through the tournament, and I think I made more money off of that single team than any other team in college basketball, men's and women's. It was just a lot of fun to watch the Florida Gators, even through their SEC tournament run, and then to see them go through the March Madness tournament. What a team! A lot of fun to watch them and profit off them. But I picked Florida to win all of my brackets, all of my bracket pools. I had Florida as the champion, so I feel really good about that. But I didn't actually win any of those pools. So I feel good that I was able to pick the right champion, but unfortunately I wasn't able to actually win those pools. But someone won the IPL bracket tournament. Who was it? How much did they win?
Geez, that you just gave a little to-do thing on my list that I forgot to get done. I don't know what the exact tally was. It's about $3,500, and
okay.
Sid won. He takes things pretty seriously at In Play Live because I know he also won one of our fantasy leagues this past year. And our defending champ, he was sitting at the top almost 2 years in a row. Won Dallas there. He almost won a couple of years in a row. But a lot of fun following the bracket in. And Shane, just because you brought up Florida and everything, it reminds me a couple episodes back, we're kind of doing a little bit of a primer. And I just picture Ryan Hammer on here talking about Florida. And it's before the conference tournament started. And, we're looking at the trapezoid of excellence. And I think you saw Duke way up at the top there. And I think if Duke had held on, I think they would have taken care of Florida too. They just sort of fell apart. They actually broke some crazy statistic, like leading field goal percentage, turnovers, like the whole list of, it's like teams in the tournament are 355-0, and then now they're 355-1 because of that Houston comeback against Duke, but he said he's like, Florida. He basically said Florida was the team to beat. That was outside of, that Duke way up at the top. And I remember we looked at their odds; they were 13-1 to win the whole thing. So, and then what you just referenced about, great program storming back and us giving people some strategies on how to bet March Madness, and you could kind of learn as years go on, but if you're super disciplined and you just wait for those really great opportunities, you would have had a strong tournament.
Yeah. They really fit into that strategy really, really well, and was able to capitalize on them quite a few times, getting some big pluses on them, when they're going into the game as a favorite. So that was awesome. But tournament behind us now, and now we move forward. And we've got a lot of sports to sort of catch up the audience on. There's some big changes in the NFL. We're going to get to that in a moment. But Pace, we always want to cover what's happening with the sports books and what's happening in the regulated landscape and legally what's unfolding. And there's a big lawsuit that was launched within the past week since we recorded our last episode. Anyway, the city of Baltimore is suing DraftKings and Flutter Entertainment, which is the parent company of FanDuel, accusing the books of engaging in deceptive and unfair practices to target and exploit vulnerable gamblers. In this too, the lawsuit, they highlight that FanDuel has at least 186 attributes for each bettor, including their propensity to gamble and susceptibility to marketing, but 186 attributes for each individual user of the platform. That's pretty incredible, I thought. Maryland legalized sports betting in 2021. The state has brought in $5.4 billion in sports bets in 2024. So just last year alone, that turned into $60 million in revenue for the state. But none of that money goes to the city of Baltimore, or at least goes directly to the city of Baltimore. So Baltimore suing the sports books here, basically saying that, look, they're using all of that data they're collecting to turn problem gamblers into serious problem gamblers to the detriment of themselves and their families and their communities. I just think we're going to see more and more lawsuits like this pop up, especially across the state, across the United States, where they just have a culture more heavily ingrained to seek litigation. Shall we say, than perhaps here north of the border. But I do think we're going to see a lot more of these lawsuits. What do you think of this one?
Well, I think this one's a little bit different because, we talk about this whole thing about like consenting adults playing on the sports book and needing to take responsibility for their actions. This is interesting because it's not, some family suing DraftKings. It's like you said, it's the city of Baltimore as a collective saying, like you're preying on our people, which is really interesting. I think I don't really think I have too much to say. I think I want to see how that unfolds. There is something really interesting that you just brought up there, Shane. And I think that, if you bet on sports and you do it successfully, whether you're a member of In Play Live or not, it's something really powerful to think about. 186 attributes from FanDuel. So let's unpack that a little bit. That is your betting fingerprint. Right.
That's a great way to look at it. Yep.
If you, if you go scan your thumb or your finger or whatever, you get detained by the police, you're in their records and they know who you are. If you come back with red hair and, a big scar across your face and you put your fingerprints back on those scanners, they go, oh, that's Shane Mercer. He's back at the cell again. Cause we've seen you before, Shane. Right. That's your online your betting fingerprint. And I think from the standpoint of how you behave on a sports book is really important, because if you had this question thrown at me this week, this account clipped me right away, knew this, knew that, did everything right. And it's like, okay, well, they know it's you clearly. Otherwise they wouldn't just shut you down, or they suspected it was you clearly. Yeah. So remember that, guys. You have a unique way that you navigate a site that someone else doesn't. The way you click on your bets, the way you place them, when you place them, how you queue them up in advance. And how many things did I just list? 4 things. 182 others. Right. So just put that in your back pocket and remember that there might be a different way of approaching things from time to time. So try to change up your betting fingerprint as much as you possibly can. Also, Shane, just back to the college basketball.
Yeah.
The most recent instance of a team winning both the Southeastern Conference tournament and the NCAA men's basketball tournament in the same season last occurred in 2007 when the Florida Gators achieved this feat. So,
Sounds about right.
Who's the most recent SEC champion pre-Florida? I'll put you on the spot and see if you can answer that. It's obvious once I say it, but if you don't know.
Oh, the most recent SEC champion to not win the tournament, though. Just the most recent.
Won the national championship.
Oh, okay. That isn't Florida.
Yeah, not this recent, before Florida. So it's happened before 2007. There's a different team.
Oh, there's one other team in between 2007 and now that's done it?
There might be more between 2007 and now, but I know the last SEC champion of the actual tournament was in 2012. I can tell you that, and then you can try to guess who it is.
Was it? Oh, it wasn't Houston.
Houston's not in the SEC.
Yeah, no. Was it Tennessee?
No. I'm actually trying to remember if Tennessee's won. Kentucky.
It was Kentucky.
So as soon as I tell you, that's where I'm like, okay, of course it's Kentucky. So Kentucky's notorious for not caring about the conference tournament. Meanwhile, Florida's two last titles are Florida's a third title. So unless Florida won between 2007 and 2025, then I'm missing it. But what I was going to get at is they care about winning their conference tournament. And the way I watch them play, it's preparation. So they say what happens in public is because of hard work in private, like that classic quote. Imagine Kobe Bryant taking the court for his conference tournament and going, oh, this doesn't matter. Like, that's not Mamba mentality, right? Whereas Florida cared. And Kentucky has notoriously said that they don't care about their conference tournament. They just care about the main tournament. It's like practice, like even if it's practice like you play. Go out there, play to win, show some grit, show some heart. And that's how Florida's comeback against Houston was remarkable. Or sorry, not against Houston. Yes, against Houston it was, but against Texas Tech was remarkable.
Yep. That was incredible.
It was absolutely remarkable, right? Yep. So like they had been there and they didn't panic. They stuck to their guns, and yeah, that's how they got it done. Anyways, I just wanted to bring up that stat because I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think you used the key word there. It was grit. And you saw it over and over again from Florida. They would fall behind, then they would dig in and come back. And, you mentioned that you thought if Duke had made it, that Duke would have beaten Florida. But I actually think Florida would have beaten Duke for that reason, because Duke had a fairly easy path to the final until they met Houston, of course. But if, let's say, Duke had overcome Houston, that would have been the first moment of demonstrating resilience that we would have seen from Duke if they had overcome and got back and won that game against Houston. Because otherwise it was a fairly easy path for them. Whereas Florida was challenged over and over again, and they demonstrated that grit and resilience every time.
Right.
Let's move on to the NFL. Pace. This is big news. NFL, a big part of In Play Live. Betting on NFL football is sort of, a moment that the entire community, I think, comes together and just sort of embraces the NFL season. And every year, it seems like for the last few years, the NFL wants to tweak things. They want to change things. There's controversy over the tush push for the last few years. And will that get banned? And another big one that they just can't keep their hands off of, and we're going to go through a bunch of these rule changes, but one of them that they just can't seem to stop tweaking is the touchback and the kickoff. They are now going to be moving the touchback to the 35-yard line. The league expects to see a lot more returns and fewer touchbacks. League data saying that the return rate will likely now be somewhere between 65 and 75%. What do you think? Are they, are they done with this? Or, is this going to be another thing we're talking about in a year from now?
Well, I think last year it became a crazy storyline because they actually changed like the entire format of it.
Yeah, the dynamic kickoff.
Rule changes are, I guess, pretty common. And when we go through a couple of these rule changes, it's going to really show that they are common. In 2011, the NFL changed the kickoff from the 30-yard line to the 35-yard line. So that made it easy for the team that's kicking the football to achieve a touchback. So it was that's the rule change. You're kicking from the 30. It's harder to kick it through the back of the end zone. You now get to kick it from the 35-yard line. You're 5 yards closer.
Yeah.
So if you want kick returns, why would you make that rule change? Well, they made the rule change because they didn't want two teams flying at each other full speed where a lot of injuries were created. So that increased the touchback rate up to 43.5% from 16.5% in 2010. So basically 3x'd the touchback rate by giving kickers the ability to make it easier to do that. So then in 2016, they made the touchback go from the 20-yard line to the 25-yard line to try and de-incentivize the kicking team a little bit. So they made it so that the returning team got 5 more yards on the kickback, but they basically said at the time that discouraged returns for the receiving team, but didn't really motivate the kicking team to change either. So the whole aim was actually to discourage returns on both sides. So that 43.5%, that 43.5% touchback rate from 2011, they increased it even further. And then in 2023, they made it so that if you called a fair catch, but it wasn't in the end zone. So like if I'm on the 1-yard line or the 5-yard line or the 10-yard line, I could call a fair catch now and I'd go to that touchback spot at the 25. So from 2011 to 2023, every single rule change was, let's make sure no one returns a kick anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And it was, they're all for player safety. But touchbacks got up to something like, I think they got up to something like 80%. So that led to 2024. So that was the introduction of the dynamic kickoff, which was honestly, it was really annoying. People are like, oh, it's a success, or I love the new kickoff, or I'm so excited for the new kickoff. So touchbacks went from 21.8%. So like I said, it was almost 80%, 21.8% in 2023, up to 32.8% in 2024 with the new dynamic kickoff. Well, guess what? That means 67% of the kicks were still touchbacks.
Yeah.
And that's with the kick going to the 30 and obviously everyone lining up together to start, so there aren't two sets of players flying at each other. So here we are in 2025, 14 years out of the first rule change that I mentioned, and now we've moved the touchback to the 35-yard line, and the NFL is projecting that there will be a 60 to 70% increase in the rate of returns this season. Okay, so that's the history of it, and that's the rule change that's happening. Now, from my standpoint, this is separately of betting, but obviously, Shane, I've got a little bit of bias because I bet on this sport religiously, and there's certain elements to rule changes that I lick my chops for. I'm like, okay, this is a great opportunity. This is going to change A, B, and C. And I actually think there's elements of this kickoff that can be beneficial for us as a group, or myself individually, however you want to look at it. But as a purist, the 80-yard touchdown drive is something really special. And now we've taken 35% of the field and awarded it to the team with the ball. You got to earn field position in the NFL. So from that standpoint, if the touchbacks do continue, because I think it was Sean McVay in 2024 where everyone was trying the kickoff in preseason, he'd touchback every time. In the regular season, he's like, no, touchback every time. He was just like, screw it. It's 5 yards. Well, if someone takes that mentality into this season and that mentality catches wind, we're going to be seeing 5 yards closer to the end zone. We're going to be seeing, in theory, one first down, 120-yard play where we're in 60-yard field goal range for some of these good kickers that are in the NFL, especially if the wind's at their back or if they're indoors. So yeah, from like a purist standpoint, I absolutely hate this rule change. From a betting standpoint, we're going to see more kick returns. That is a fact, regardless if they get the percentages that they want. Because of that, there's going to be more kickoff touchdowns. There's going to be more kickoff fumbles. That means there's going to be more points. Last year, scoring was up over 2 points from 2023 to 2024. That was largely due to those 5 extra yards and the changed kick rules. We will see that again. Scoring will be up in the NFL from this rule change. And the goal, so Bill Belichick was, when I'm talking about the 2011 to 2022 rules of the kickoff, Bill Belichick was a genius because he had mastered this pooch kick where he didn't let people get to the 25. He'd kick it into the corners. They'd have to return it. And he would have his special teams unit flying down the field, and he was oftentimes getting them, from the 19-yard line all the way down to the 10-yard line after the kickoff. So the average starting field position this past year when the kicks were returned, there were almost no examples of them inside the 20. Most of them got out to the 26, 27, 28, 30-ish yard range. So the whole idea there is make them return it, and they won't get to the 35 if you handle it well. Well, if they're still getting out to the 30, it's kind of like, I don't know, that's what frustrates me. If you really want to have an incentive for them, I think the kicker and the team of the defensive team that can tackle them, they should be closer to where the ball lands, that receiving area. And then you could actually go, okay, if you kick a touchback, they're going to the 35. But if you hit a really good kick return, you have a good chance of getting them down at somewhere between the 15 and the 25. And if that was the way things went, I would be like, geez, the kickoff has a lot of incentive, number one, to have a good return for the return team, and number two, for special teams to make a genuine impact on the starting field position of the team that's receiving the ball. So I'm not thrilled with all this, but that's, I think, the outcome that we're going to see this season. And I do hope that the touchbacks are not prominent starting at the 35. I really hope we're seeing a lot of drives starting closer to the 25. I just don't know that it's possible.
Yeah. I think you're right on the side of this will likely lead to more points. I think we're going to see, more returns for touchdowns or big returns that put teams, in range or in the red zone. And more sort of, muffed punts or muffed returns and fumbles and that kind of thing where the kicking team ends up recovering the ball and is in the red zone in that way. So I think you're right that we'll probably continue to see more points, and maybe that's what the league wants. The general feeling out there across a lot of sports is that, more points, more goals, more runs equals more entertainment or more entertainment value. And, I don't know that holds true for everybody out there, but, I think that's kind of the way these leagues sort of look at the public and public sentiment and that kind of thing.
Right. But there's also so separately of I understand that mentality.
Yeah.
But in fantasy football, there's nothing like these big touchdowns, like, Burrow to Chase for 80 yards or Jefferson 90-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
You're taking a little bit of that away too. It's harder to score it's harder to score those long, exciting touchdowns when the longest is 65.
Yeah. When the field's that much shorter. That's a great point. You're not going to get as many of those big splash plays. Which is not as exciting. So that's a great sort of counterpoint to that. Okay, there's a lot of other rule changes that we should probably get through here. And one of these is I think pretty big in the sense of if you are somebody to bet a side, bet a money line, and that kind of thing. It's the overtime rule. So regular season overtime is going to look a lot more like playoffs overtime, meaning both teams are going to get the ball no matter what. So even if the team that gets the ball first scores a touchdown, the other team is going to get a chance to score one back. And for regular season, instead of the overtime period being 15 minutes, it's only going to be 10 minutes. And with 15 minutes, we've seen games end in ties. With only 10 minutes, no score in 10 minutes, it's going to be a tie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the overtime period's been 10 minutes since 2017
for the regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now they're changing this where it'll only be 10 minutes still in the regular season, but OT has been 15 minutes. So that's sort of the difference there.
No. So overtime in the regular season has been 10 minutes since 2017. In the playoffs, I mean, it just goes to the next quarter if you're still tied, obviously. But yeah. Okay. So let's unpack this rule change here. Okay. So 1974, NFL introduced sudden death overtime. That meant a field goal wins the game. So if you win the coin toss, you take the ball, you get into range, you kick a field goal, the game's over, which is just insane, right? Insane. It took them till 2010 to adjust that rule.
I was just going to say that rule lived forever.
Yeah.
It was there for so long. Yeah.
In 2010, they only changed it for overtime. So if you received the kickoff and you kicked a field goal, your opponent got a rebuttal to kick a field goal back or score a touchdown to win. But if you scored an opening drive touchdown, the game still ended.
Yeah.
In 2012, they took it from the postseason and they put it into the regular season. So from 2012 until 2022, we watched pretty much Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. If they won a toss, the game was over. They drove down, they scored a touchdown, with the exception of Brady doing it to Mahomes in the AFC Championship, Patriots against the Chiefs in 2019. So 2022, the NFL said you get rebuttal on an opening drive touchdown only in the playoffs. And now as we head into this season, they've carried it into the regular season. So like you said, Shane, you get a rebuttal if you score an opening drive touchdown. But from a betting standpoint, this is probably one of the most significant rule changes that we've ever seen. And it isn't like, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity. What it is if you have a tied football game or a game that could be tied, like this is where, like, betting experience, I'll say something and it'll just click for you and it'll be like, pace, that's obvious. Whereas some other people won't necessarily understand because they just don't have maybe a lot of live betting experience or a lot of, like, I guess, awareness watching football where you go, oh shit, this could now all happen.
Yeah.
So let's say it's a 7-point game or a 3-point game, right? And depending on the time left and where the losing team has the football, you might be looking at an under in a game going, okay, 3 + 3, they tie the game, right? Now there's 3 points in regulation where they can walk it off if they kick a walk-off field goal, if there's still time for that. In an overtime, there could be a walk-off field goal, but we want 6 more points to give because they won't kick a PAT in overtime. Can they technically score more than 6 points in overtime? Yeah, it could go 3-3-6. It's never happened. It can also go 3-3-3. It's never happened, right? It's crazy. We think about those scenarios, Shane, when we're betting. They've never happened, right? So, but you want 6 to give in overtime when you're looking at an under, right? Because they don't kick the PAT, and that gives you the touchdown to give. So let's say the team's down 3, they're approaching range, and you would want 9 points to give. And a lot of people might not understand that totally, but the idea is they kick a field goal to tie, and then you have that extra 6. And if they scored a touchdown to win, the opponent, or to take the lead, they're down by 4. You would lose your under if the opponent scores a touchdown back on you. But in order for you to lose, you would have needed touchdown. Whereas then if they go field goal, you're going to overtime and you've got 6 to give, or they go field goal, and if it's still regulation, the team that's now driving back that just got tied on going to win, they shouldn't score a quick touchdown. They should manage the clock and kick a walk-off field goal.
Kick a game-winning field goal.
Both those instances, we would win and under, provided that we're getting those numbers. That has changed now significantly, because as we head into overtime, and again, this is an example I just said where they're down 3, but if the team's down 3 or 7 late, and you do the math of the situation and it goes to overtime, we're looking at potentially, in theory, it could be even more than this, but 15 more points being scored. And the reason why I say 15 is because with the 10-minute quarter, I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think any team, barring some weird playoff situation where the tie really matters to them, I don't think the team that got scored on, that scores back, won't go for 2.
Okay, right.
Because think about it from this standpoint, Shane. You have a 10-minute quarter. You've just gone down 7. Okay? And that's the first thing that we haven't even discussed. The team now kicked the PAT.
They're going to kick the extra point. Exactly. So that's critical right there, all on its own. It's that extra point's coming.
It's massive. Okay. Yeah. So the opening team scores a touchdown. They don't win the game anymore. They have to kick a PAT. Of course, they could go for 2, but they have to kick a PAT.
Right. Okay? They're going to probably kick the PAT in that situation, scoring first.
Now the team that's down, that probably, and this is the other question, Shane, did they defer?
Oh,
so the Niners got ripped to shreds for not deferring in the Super Bowl. But there's an argument that you don't defer because of the 10-minute quarter. Because this team has the average scoring touchdown drive in the NFL, I think, is around 7.5 minutes. It could be, I could be wrong, but I think it's around 7.5 minutes. So now this team only has 2.5 minutes to score back. Separately of that, the team that holds the ball to start, once they're in range, they know that they can start working on the clock, and they could, in theory, kick a walk-off field goal with zeros on the clock, because we have seen 12-minute touchdown drives, which is longer than the 10-minute quarter. So strategy in overtime for coaching, which we already saw as an issue with Shanahan in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs 2 years ago, strategy for coaching in overtime is massive now. So I don't know the answer to the question, but the obvious one is you defer and you go second, but it might not be that obvious because because of the time. There's only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If the team that starts with the ball can milk the whole clock and kick a walk-off field goal, it doesn't matter. It's the overtime's over. And if you do defer, you might only have a minute or 30 seconds or 2 minutes to score a touchdown back. So that's a massive factor. But back to the point that I was making before. You score the touchdown, you're up 7. Now you have to go score back. If you score back and you kick a PAT and there still is time on the clock. So let's say the team that started with the ball scored a touchdown in 3 minutes. There's 7 minutes left on the clock. You go down and you score a touchdown back in 5 minutes, right? So now there's 8 minutes used and there's 2 minutes left for the losing team. Why in God's name would you give the ball back to them where they can walk it off now with a field goal? Because then it's sudden death after that. And you know you're not getting the ball back. There's 2 minutes left. You're not getting the ball back. So I think the losing team will go for 2 when they're down 7 every single time, with the exception of a draw getting them into the playoffs late in the season.
Right.
So this is where
there's an incentive to play for the tie.
Right. This is where 15 more points is realistic in overtime. But separately of that, if the touchdown is scored on the opening drive and it ends 7-0 in overtime, the other team does not score, that was still that extra single point kicked versus before where it was just 6. Yeah. So this is another rule change where, again, it's a finite number of games, very limited. Not a lot of games go to overtime. And then once they do, if the opening team punts, well, then it's sudden death. It's a walk-off 6 or a walk-off 3, depending on the situation. But if that opening team scores, this and the kickoff, they both lead to the average points being scored higher in the NFL this season. And also mentally, the way we approach betting games like this definitely changes.
And just to sort of add to some of what you touched on there in terms of the drive time and how much clock you could have milked before and may attempt to now. But again, back to the touchback rule, fields are going to be shorter. Right. So we might see teams score a little bit quicker. And some of those drive times that average drive time might come down because of that. I think all of it, though, leads to more points. Right. Both changes have the potential to lead to significantly more points.
Right.
Not fewer.
And it is kind of weird to talk about this right now, Shane, but let's say apples to apples, we're getting the same algorithm. I can picture myself right now in a game that's, say, tied 28-28. Right. And we're not in overtime and I'm getting 3 to give. And I get really excited about that opportunity. 3 to give. So I wanted 6, but I'm like, I still got to take 3. I think there'll be a walk-off field goal. Right. And then in overtime, you're dodging that opening touchdown. Right. Am I now, and I don't know the answer to this, but am I now sitting there going, okay, guys, it's 4 wins it. We just need 1 touchdown. Like, am I looking at that now instead because of the overtime rules?
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, it's 4 wins it, or it's 6 wins it.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that same team that might be looking to walk it off may just go down and score a touchdown, and there's so many ways that paths lead to those 4 points.
Yeah.
Anyway, it'll be interesting to see it unfold. And yeah, you made a good point there. Like, does the algorithm stay the same? Right? Do the sports books, keep it close, or do they move higher too? Right? And maybe you'll get more points to give. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see how they kind of approach those situations and those game totals.
I will just say, Shane, just before we wrap up on that, in 2024, when they released the dynamic kickoff, it was projected that there would be 1.5 more points per game, and they figured that sports books were giving 2 to 2.5 points more per game. So essentially, like a rule change that tells people there'll be more points. The public's like, overs are back. Like, let's bet the overs, right? The projected total of 1.5, it actually went higher than that from the previous season. But 2023 was historically low in points per game in the NFL. But yeah, I think it was like 2.2 points per game. Excuse me, 2.2 points per game more, or something like that. So the sports books will definitely react in this situation and increase the totals.
Yeah, we'll see it go up. It's a question of how much, right? And then how does it hold through a game? That'll kind of be the thing to look at. All right, more changes in the NFL. Basically the refs are going to get a lot more help. If you want to call it that. They're going to be perhaps less involved in some ways and more involved in other ways. So there's going to be more opportunities for replay assist when it comes to penalties that are called. So penalties called on the field. Defenseless player, face mask, horse collar tackle, tripping, and running into the kicker, roughing the kicker. But here's the thing, right? If they miss a call, they can't review it and throw a flag after. It's only reviewable if it's called on the field, and then they can take it away. So it's a little bit strange in that sense, where it's okay if they do call a penalty, there is potential for replay assist to review and take the penalty, like pick up the flag, but they can't throw a flag after the fact. And we've seen a lot of missed calls. And so I think, it's kind of, I'm thinking about maybe it should have gone the other way. I don't know.
Right. So it sounds to me like it's the black and white penalties. Of course, there's always a little gray area, but it sounds like the black and white penalties, the obvious ones.
Yeah.
But they've only gone halfway.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now if you're an official, stands to reason that you just throw the damn flag, right? You kind of throw the flag knowing that it can be pulled away if you got the call wrong. But we saw when they introduced reviews for pass interference, it doesn't matter if it wasn't PI. If they threw the flag, it stood. And if it was and they didn't, it stood. So hopefully they take an approach where it is black and white and they go, yeah, that's a penalty. And yeah, hopefully officials just toss a little bit more laundry on the field, because the thing is Shane, we know when we've lost bets, where it's like, okay, let's just, for an example, you didn't want a team to score, they're at the 50, it's 3rd and 10, and they get the call right, grabs his face mask. We might be pissed as we see it, and then they slow it down, and we're like, oh, you know what? He did. They got the call right. We don't like losing. I'd rather they missed that call, obviously, in that spot, and it led to a punt or whatever in this example that I'm giving. But when they get the call right, it's hard to, I guess, sort of refute it or debate it. I think from a viewer standpoint, betting or not, people do just want to see those black and white flags not missed.
Yeah. Blatant calls out there. Now, I don't know if it will lead to do we want more replay assists for one? Do we want the game stopped more frequently
Shane, replay assist was the thing that just came in, and it was amazing.
It's great. Yeah, it's a great piece of technology, but obviously it slows the game down. It slows everything down. But that's the
point. All it would be was the official saying, correction, replay assist has changed this call. And it stops the clock for like 4 seconds. I loved the replay assist because they did such a good job of correcting the call without wasting our time as a viewer. So it slowed the game down like very, very slightly. We're not talking about a big review here. Replay assist was like, correction, replay assist has come in and made this change. It was an incomplete pass, and boom, we're back. Like, I loved it.
Yeah, I'm thinking more flags. Like, the scenario that you painted where the refs will just throw more flags because they know it can go to replay assist and they can, sort it out there. And
right.
So, I'm thinking of that we might just get more flags just cause.
Yeah, and that like, again, now this is like two people start nerding out. So you have a 40-second play clock, right? You have a running play. So the clock keeps running. As soon as the player's down, the next 40 seconds starts. Replay assist comes in. Let's say the clock stops at 37 seconds in the play clock for replay assist coming in. The ref comes in and says, replay assist confirmed that there was no flag. We had a running play, so the clock will start running again. It should start running again, but it's going to start. I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty confident it's going to start running at 25 seconds now because that's how the NFL works with the stoppage. So the running clock, the game clock, would have, let's say it was at 3 minutes remaining in the quarter, right? And we just got a running play, and if they use the whole play clock before they snap the next ball, the next ball, it's going to bring it down to 2:20. But if replay assist came in, we're sitting there where if it came in at 37 seconds and then went to 25, 12 extra seconds of time was almost added to the game because replay assist came in. But separately of that is the players already know what's going on, and they're in the huddle before the clock starts running again. Well, this is being broadcast to the crowd. So you get the 12 seconds added to the game. Plus, the team that's on offense is going to snap the ball sooner on average because of the fact that, well, the refs are saying this thing about replay assist and the clock is stopped, they're starting their huddle, or their huddle's already over. They're ready to snap the ball much quicker. So obviously we look at all these things when we're betting, and I'm just thinking ahead going, that will be a very uncommon but relevant factor, I would say, next season.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it in terms of more time getting added and giving the offense a sort of an opportunity to act quicker.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Another big one here. And this is sort of the last big rule change I'll bring up. And then there's a couple of other things in the NFL that we can sort of run through quickly. But this one, and everybody will remember this one because it happened in the AFC Championship game between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was a hot point of controversy. Did Josh Allen get the first down?
Okay.
And everybody going back and forth. He got it. He didn't get it. It was talked about for days after the game. And, the whole it's rigged conversation and this and that, right? Well, the NFL is going to measure first downs electronically. The chain gang will still be there on the field in 2025 to serve as a backup in case there's any issues with the new technology. It's called Sony Hawkeye technology, and that's what's going to be used. They're going full electronic chip, measuring it. They shouldn't need the chains to come out, but they'll still be there as backup. I think that this will just improve accuracy overall.
Didn't they have a preseason NFL game where the Hawkeye technology was in?
They've used it.
Some kicker missed like 5 kicks in a row, and then he said it was the chip in the ball.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
But then he missed all season long.
Still missed.
Was it Bass? I think it might have been Bass.
Was it Bass? I'm not sure who it was. There was a lot of missed kicks over the course of last season. I remember quite a few. But yes, it's going to be there. Maybe it'll be another excuse for
it was the CFL.
Oh, was it I thought the NFL used it as well, though. The NFL did, I'm pretty sure, test it.
No,
out.
It was Sergio Castillo. He missed like 5 kicks in a game, and he blamed the chip. Then they fixed it, and he continued to miss. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Hopefully they get the chip, coordinated so that it doesn't impact the way the ball's thrown or kicked. I'm assuming that's an obvious one.
Yeah, hopefully this isn't a cumbersome chip, and it's sort of nicely slipped into the ball, no issue, and nobody even notices it. But hopefully they'll get a lot more of those calls correct, which is great either way, whether they get the first down or they don't get the first down. I think we just want to see calls made correctly, and I think that this will help. Yeah. Okay, a couple of others quick things to run through. So the playoff format. There's this change has been tabled, but it's not official. Is that a wild card team with a better record than a division winner would be seeded higher? This is just tabled. It's going to be discussed again in May and potentially voted on in May. So if a wild card team has a better record than a team that won its division, that wild card team would be seeded higher. That's the change that's on the table, up for discussion. The next league meeting is in May, at the end of May, in Minnesota, May 20th and 21st. So that's where they'll have a vote on that potential change. They'll also potentially be looking at the tush push at that time. So stay tuned for that. Also, the league revealed that there's going to be a triple header on Christmas. In this upcoming season. Christmas falls on a Thursday, so there would have already been 1 game on the Thursday. They're going to have a total of 3 games on Christmas Day. 2 of those games on Netflix, 1 on Amazon. Yeah. So there you go.
Well, they're doing it because it works.
Yeah, I mean, people watched, right? People watched.
I hate those days, it being on Christmas Day, but it's clear, like, the NFL knows what they're doing when it comes to viewership and profitability. So they're doing it for a reason. All
right. Well, on that topic of viewership profitability, let's move over to the NHL and a big decision, big announcement that came down over the past week there, especially here in Canada. Rogers is going to continue to bring hockey to Canadians for another 12 years. It's an $11 billion deal. It's exclusive for Rogers. They have the rights to hockey games across the country until 2037-38. It's very similar to the deal that they're just coming off of. 12 years cost $5.2 billion and expires at the end of the 2025-2026 hockey season. So that was the last deal that's about to run out. It was 12 years. It was a $5.2 billion deal. This next one is 12 years. It's an $11 billion deal. So basically double, just over double what the previous one was. Rogers will retain the opportunity to sub-license games out to other broadcast networks, TSN, TVA in Quebec, and Amazon Prime, which we've seen, and who knows, perhaps over those 12 years we could see some of the other streamers get some of those sub licenses. But 12-year deal in this day and age, man, things change so fast. Technology changes rapidly, and to think that you're going to go and make a 12-year agreement on broadcasting rights in this day and age to me just seems absolutely insane. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think the NHL is the Pac-12 of professional North American sports.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I've been betting hockey for a long time, and in 2015, 2016, we've gone backwards. So people have obviously seen my betting setup. I had, a few TVs back then and had coaxial cable boxes plugged in, and you'd subscribe to NHL Center Ice through your cable package, and it would pop up, and your latency was approximately 10 to 15 seconds behind the rink. So if you watch a really good hockey feed through the broadcast that you're referencing there, Shane, with this new deal. So if you have a coaxial feed and like it's Sportsnet playing the Canucks in your city or the Leafs in your city, you've got a good feed. It's about 10 to 15 seconds behind what's happening on the rink. I don't know when it happened, but it might have been 2020-ish. Where NHL Center Ice, some cable packages just stopped offering it, but then you'd buy it, and even if you still had coaxial cable, it was an IPTV internet feed being picked up by your coaxial broadcast. So now if I go to watch NHL games that are not, say, the Canucks, I'm watching a feed that's 30 plus seconds behind what's happening on the rink. And in some cases, like 45 seconds to a minute behind what's happening on the rink. It's unacceptable. It's not easy to watch. They just locked into 12 years with the very companies that have made this the infrastructure for us to watch today. We just reference Prime, like even Prime. I don't know how they're picking up their hockey feeds or why it is how it is, but Prime Thursday Night Football is 7 seconds behind what's happening on the field. Prime NHL hockey is 30 seconds plus behind what's happening on the rink. 12 years of this bullshit. Like, no, we need hockey fans. It's an amazing game to watch. It's unbelievable. We need the ability to watch it as close to real time as possible so that we know what's going on and that we don't hear the horns going off and other people cheering in condo complexes and fantasy football feeds going off ahead of time of what happened in the game before we've seen it. The NHL needs to figure this out. It's been just terrible. Shane, where do you go watch all your hockey games? Where do you go watch at NHL if there's 4 games coming in at once?
Yeah. Well,
no, seriously, where do you watch them?
I personally, I'll just watch what I have, and I'll sportsbook watch.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
You don't.
I don't. 100%.
And you guys see me on stream when sometimes I have a good feed, sometimes I don't. I'm like, guys, I'm muting everyone in the chat. I don't want a sportsbook watch because I want to watch the final few minutes of this hockey game without being influenced by, knowing what happens already. And people are laughing at me because they know what happens and I'm coming in a minute later.
Hey, yeah, you know what? And that's because you're a passionate fan of the sport. You want to see it in its pure way kind of unfold. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But that's kind of what you have to do now, especially when you're sort of, betting on it with a group of people and other people are just interested in the information. Yeah.
And like my parents got the new Rogers cable package and they watch the Canucks games together. They like watching NHL. They'll text me like 3 minutes after a goal, like woohoo Canucks. I'm like, don't worry, they're already gave the goal back. That's what I'll respond. I'll be like, don't worry, guys. Like they already gave the lead back. Like
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad.
I just think I don't know how. I understand why the league would want to lock up a 12-year agreement. But so they don't have to revisit it. But I mean, like. Things just change so quickly. Think of where we were 12 years ago with the stream, the streaming options out there and where we are now. It's just, and who knows where we'll be in another 12 years. It's or even 5 years, like halfway through this deal.
Yeah.
The landscape could shift so dramatically. I don't know.
And if you are in the States, it's no better there. It might even be worse. The NHL is not, they are the Pac-12 of professional sports in North America.
All right. Well, let's leave it there because we're running out of time. We got a little bit long in the tooth here, but I also want to mention the Masters. The Masters tees off on Thursday. Golf. I love the Masters pace. I think I love it more so because of what it represents this time of the year. It's nice. We know the weather's getting warmer. It's getting great outside. I'm going to be golfing outside soon. That's what sort of the Masters tells me, right? It's like, hey, Shane, you're going to get to hit the course again soon. Not that I'm any kind of great golfer, but, I like to play. I've been playing a long time. Have a lot of fun getting out there, knocking the ball around with the boys. I would sort of describe myself as somebody who would much rather play golf than watch golf. But when the Masters comes on, it's on for all 4 days, and I watch it more so than any other major golf tournament by far. When it comes to the Masters, but when it comes to kind of like betting the Masters and betting golf, I very rarely place a wager. Maybe on the Sunday if I want to get just as a rec bet, but. I know a lot of people out there, Pace, can profit off golf, make money off of golf. We've spoken to some. We've had some guests on the show that said, yeah, golf is like, their main thing or one of the main sports that they focused on as professional bettors. And they sort of, made their living off of betting golf. I'm thinking of Adam Bjorn in specifically as a guy who really sort of talked a lot about golf and his, his ability to profit off of it. Pace, I know you like to play golf, but do you follow it much? And I don't know you as somebody to bet on golf, really.
I used to.
Yeah,
I used to. Definitely when we started In Play Live, that first Masters, it was so much fun. We were just crushing hole by hole scoring as the day changed. And it was one of the most fun, craziest weekends of betting ever. We ended up needing to go live, and we were calling all these bets live on different holes and like different groups to score on holes. And oh my God, it was so much fun. Those markets, I don't want to say they're all gone, but they were pretty much pulled after that Masters. Sports books were pretty vulnerable there. That was like right at the launch of legalization in Canada, I would say, maybe a little bit before then. Yeah, tons of fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun betting futures and picking people. One of my earliest betting wins was actually taking Bubba Watson to win the Masters. I think I got him at like 56 to 1.
Wow.
What year was that? It was his first win.
I feel like we're going back probably 10 years.
Yeah, so this was in 2012. So I put $10 on him. So to give you guys reference, if you're all thinking like, oh, my unit size is small. I wasn't even a pro bettor then, but that was definitely something that when you have a win like that, I turned 10 into like 5,600 or something. That was the year of the shot, his famous shot in extra holes from in the trees. Yeah. And then I think for the Masters, I had just an incredible run of betting on winners. So I took in 2019, I had Koepka and I had Woods, and this is probably something that bettors shouldn't do, but I was like, I can't cheer for both of these guys anymore. I cashed out a Koepka at a huge profit, just to cheer in Tiger. And so I hit twice in that Masters because I got out of Koepka and won a bunch of money on him, and then Tiger came through.
That's awesome. I remember that. What a moment for Tiger to win it then. That was really cool.
I hit Bubba at 36 on his second win. I have some really nostalgic Masters betting moments. It's just making me want to go pick a future for this year. But yeah, those would be the three, the Tiger, Bubba that I won. I definitely have thrown some darts since then. I'm a real sucker for Koepka. Like I always love betting on him, but he can't seem to put it together at Augusta. And I actually don't know. Like I'm not up to date with golf. I don't know if you are, Shane.
A little bit, but not not crazy or anything. I know that Scotty Scheffler has been playing well. I know Rory McIlroy is also up there as one of the favorites to win this tournament. And I know he's never won it before, so like it's kind of funny to have a guy like him as one of the favorites to as somebody who's sort of chasing that elusive white whale for him. And I think that would be really cool to kind of see him win it. I know he probably has a lot of people cheering for him. But no, I don't really follow it that closely, especially in the off season.
Augusta seems to be his kryptonite, and I'm not saying he can't win. I never want to say that, but it does seem to be his kryptonite. And the thing is this is like a sort of notorious thing at Augusta. Is I think the field knows that there's only, like, if you looked at the entire field, they know there's only a handful of the golfers that can actually win this tournament, put together 4 rounds and kind of get it all done. And there's a couple people that are on that list that are really far down, like have really, really long odds to win. And you saw this time and again. So a really good example of this was from 2010 to 2018. It felt like it was almost a certainty that up on the leaderboard there somewhere was Freddie Couples. And people knew, like, okay, Freddie Couples is not gonna win the tournament this week, but he knows how to play the course damn well.
But he's always in it. Yeah.
Right. He knows how to play the course so damn well. So, like, former champions at Augusta should never really be slept on. So then you might be thinking, like, oh, let's go look at, like, what Bubba Watson pays. No, don't. I don't even know if Bubba's playing. He obviously gets the invite every year. But don't go bet on him. I don't think he's playing. Yeah, he's not on the list, but former champions is a real thing. So, like, Scotty Scheffler is the odds-on favorite, but he knows how to win at Augusta, and knowing how to win at Augusta it's massive. Like, it gives him such an edge over McIlroy. Yeah. Did Bryson win at Augusta?
DeChambeau? I feel like he won it maybe 3-4 years ago.
The U.S. Open twice. So, like, Bryson's a guy who people love. They love him. And he really struggles in Augusta. He's got this long ball. He has this sort of he has like this Happy Gilmore approach to golf, which is why people love him. It's like you swing out of your shoes, you always go for the green. And I think at some point during the 4 days, Augusta punishes him for it. And I mean, he is one of the odds-on favorites this week. And like, my heart wants to bet on him because of his hole-in-ones challenge over his house. I thought it was one of the best social media challenges ever done. Like, my heart wants to bet on him strictly because of that. You know, like Xander Schauffele, he's a really good example of a guy that's played Augusta really, really well year in, year out. But something in those 4 days, something in those 4 days kills him. Yeah.
Just looking at the odds here, Pinnacle. Pinnacle.com/in-play live if you haven't signed up. But looking at the odds on Pinnacle here, DeChambeau at 21.0, so 21 to 1 to win it. Scheffler at the top, as mentioned, at 6.44. McIlroy at 8.2, so just behind him there. You mentioned Xander Schauffele there. He's at 27.7. Right now, so it looks like he's about the 10th on the list there. One guy that I'm kind of perhaps thinking about and humming and hawing over pace, and this is a guy who kind of had a breakout last year at the Masters. That I don't think many people knew much about him at that time. But this guy Ludwig Oberg,
he's amazing. He's amazing.
Really just showed up and had a lot of fun. On the course, he looked like he was really relaxed out there for a guy who was, I think it was his first time playing at Augusta. He looked really comfortable, and he made a bit of a run at it. He didn't end up winning, but he looked like he had a really good shot at winning it, sort of midway through the tourney, and he's listed there at 20 to 1. So I don't know.
I mean, he really ended up struggling with his putter, and some of the best, like if I look at this list and look at some of the guys that have been coming through on Saturday and Sunday that have had leads at the Masters, like Koepka, something about their putter at Augusta, like really good putting players too, that they struggle. They can't knock down 6-8 foot birdies. They keep making pars, and then eventually some trouble finds them, and they didn't make the birdies to make up for it. But yeah, it's so much fun to watch. I know nothing about golf, but I think that I probably will play something. The other thing too, guys, is like if Scotty Scheffler's if he comes out and he's not at the top of the leaderboard, and he gets up above 10-1, I would be shocked if at some point we aren't like, here comes Scotty Scheffler, So like live betting is a real thing. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger on someone that has the ability to get back in the tournament. It's a long 4 days. And I'm sure at some point he'll go on a run. So if it didn't happen, right out of the gate, then doesn't mean it won't happen. Looking down the list, I don't know enough about golf, but a lot of the guys that you'd want to bet on are up at the top there. So I tend to think that there's no value on them then. I always want to look for some sort of long shot dark horse. Yeah, Will Zalatoris, another one that we've seen come through up at the top of the leaderboard and just couldn't get the putter going. And Phil's always exciting, but I don't think he has what it takes to win the tournament.
I don't know if he's got it anymore. But what odds on him on Pinnacle here? 142-1.
See, that's just fun. But again, so like Adam Scott.
Canadian boy.
Adam Scott's from Australia, I believe, or maybe New Zealand or Australia.
Why did I think he was Canadian?
Yeah. I don't know. His accent certainly doesn't say Canadian, but like Adam Scott, former champion, Phil, former champion. When you go through some of these guys, it isn't even necessarily that they're going to win or have a shot to win, but like sometimes they pay well just to make the cut, and they know the course, right? So like that can be a fun way to bet. The problem with it is if you're betting on someone to make the cut, you never fucking see them, so you don't get to watch them play, right? But like,
you don't really get to cheer that one in, like watching it on TV.
So like TSN does this thing in Canada where like they have different hole groupings. So you can go like you can watch holes 1 through 4, and then you can watch holes 5 through 9, and like if they're on those holes, you flip the channels and watch them go through. And then they make the cut. You don't even care about them on Saturday and Sunday anymore. They're like, he did his job. But the thing is like, there's something special about the Masters, and guys like Phil know that. Guys like Adam Scott, they know that. They know how to play the course. And Bubba Watson is playing. He's 600-1.
600-1.
I wouldn't bet Bubba necessarily in any capacity, but another 2-time champion, Bubba Watson. These guys know how to play the course, and there might be really good value on them just to make the cut. Freddie Couples is playing. 2,000-1. He's not going to win. Mike Weir, former champion, 2,500-1. I'm not saying to bet on these guys at all, but I'm saying some of them might be a good look to make the cut. And I think for that, we should have consulted Cookie Monster beforehand and seen if he liked any of these dogs.
I did. I reached out to him. Reach out to him. He didn't really have much to say on it. He was like, I don't know. He's like, I'm not, he doesn't feel like he's got a good beat on it.
Okay. Well, we bet 2 years in a row, we bet Tiger to make the cut. One year we got him at like -120, and the other year we got him at like +110. It got so sweaty last year, like so sweaty. It came down to a putt. He made it like a birdie on 18 or something, but it's too bad because I would love to bet Tiger to make the cut. But the point is, you get a guy like Tiger Woods, right, that we know probably is never going to win the Masters again. But that's that tournament where it's like, I'm playing all 4 days. I know how to play this course. I know how to win this course. I am playing all 4 days. And by the time they get to Saturday, they're just having fun. They're just out there having fun. And I think there's a few guys that fall into that category for this tournament. So if you know someone that's in form, that's a huge dog, that knows how to play the Masters, take them to make the cut.
Yeah, why not? Right? Why not? It gets me thinking though, Pace, like, why don't we bet more on golf? It's sort of that time of year where, there's not as much happening, especially as we sort of, after NHL playoffs, after NBA playoffs. And, we're talking about the CFL and we get into the dog days of summer where it's just sort of baseball and CFL. I just sometimes question like, hey, why don't we look at exploring more edges in golf? And I know people out there are doing it. Have you thought about it? Have you talked to people about it?
No, not at all. I think there is a little bit of I would say a problem with In Play Live from the standpoint of we follow the money. And oftentimes when we follow the money, it leads to us all doing the same thing. And then it can lead to a tunnel vision. right? So it's like, here's everything that you can bet on, and this is what isn't working, and this is what isn't working, and then it all sort of funnels into here, and then you go, okay, this is now in play live sort of pigeonholed to what it is that we're currently doing. That's a good process because it's trial and error, going into that, but then it has to repeat. So in order for us to bet golf really successfully, we need a group of people that's really devoted to doing it, finding edges and angles. And that's how we have led to a lot of the things that we are currently doing. Right. You got to find the people that are really passionate about the game. I'll be passionate as a fan for the Masters, but I know myself personally, I don't have the capacity myself to lock into golf to the level that's needed to win. So it takes a guy that loves the game, that has the capacity, that goes, I'll follow Pace for hockey, but I'm not going to be an expert at hockey, or, I'll follow John for NBA, but, I'm not going to follow the NBA. I'll take his bets when he calls them, but I'm going to be locked in on golf.
Yeah. Well, if any of you out there are listening and thinking, hey, why doesn't IPL bet more on golf? But you love golf and you're actively looking at golf and you think you've identified some edges, reach out to us. Let us know. We don't necessarily need to expose your edge, but we'd love to sort of chat about it and, encourage you and maybe bounce some ideas off and that kind of thing. We'd love to sort of hear more about it. And, it's kind of like research and development, so to speak, right?
But on that note too, I have bet golf and I have bet it very successfully. Right. It's just the edges so I'm very much the kind of person where if an edge dries up, I find the next one, whereas golf was never my thing. So it's like, okay, I've made money doing this, the edge dried up, and now I'm not going, okay, what's next in golf? There are definitely ways to make money from betting on it. So yeah, if you're into this stuff, then by all means, let's have a conversation. Yeah, let's have a conversation.
All right. Well, we've talked a little bit about NHL and NBA playoffs. I've mentioned it a few times. We are right around the corner from full-on playoffs. NBA begins at the end of next week. I think even play-in games may start middle of next week. But we're right there. And we're going to be talking more about playoffs. We're going to get John in for next week's episode for one of the grind segments. He's really going to dial into NBA playoffs for us. So Pace, looking forward to that. But anything else that you want to share with the audience before we sign off for this week?
Nope. Let's rock and roll. Enjoy the Masters.
All right. Well, Pace, to you and sports bettors out there around the world tuning into the Masters beginning on Thursday. Till next week, keep beating those books. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.